Hi, it's me, Storyteller Mitch. I lucked out today. While walking and looking at a antique store, I found this Arabian Nights, printed in Tales from Arabian Nights, and it was printed in, come on, probably the 50s. 1965. I was close. And it's just an old copy of this book, and it has stories of Aladdin, of Sinbad, Bahram the Lucky and He Who Followed His Dream, stories of Ali Baba, like some of those old stories. And it's said in between books for in between readers. So, a Whitman tween age book. And it's got some illustrations in it too. And I'm going to start reading it. And here's the... Unfortunately, I can't... There we go. There. So I'm going to start reading Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. Just move this down a bit so you can see my book. Alright. Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. There once was a poor widow in China who had an only son named Aladdin. The two lived in a small house outside a great city. Aladdin's mother made a living for them by spinning flax into bread. Although she worked hard, there never seemed to be enough food in the house. Aladdin was often hungry, and his skinny arms and legs stuck out of his patched clothes. One day while Aladdin was playing in the street, a richly dressed stranger stopped and stared at him. Small enough and thin enough, the stranger said to himself. Now let us see if this boy will do in other ways. The stranger called Aladdin and began to ask questions. He soon learned that the boy's father was dead. Hearing this, the stranger threw his arms around him and wept. Your father was my younger brother, he told Aladdin. You were so like him. I knew at once that you were my nephew. Take me to your mother. I wish to speak to her. Aladdin blinked at the man in surprise. He had never heard of an uncle. Come, lad, close your mouth. Take me to your home, the stranger said, giving the boy a slight push. Soon the two were hurrying down the narrow, crooked streets. As they passed through the bazaar, the new-found uncle stopped. He bought a roasted duck, bread, fruit, almond cakes, jasmine tea, and even some wine for good measure. When they reached Aladdin's home, his mother could scarcely believe her eyes. She had never seen so much fine food in her life. But when the stranger told her that he was her dead husband's older brother, she looked puzzled. My dear husband never talked about a brother, she said. Aladdin cried out in alarm. Now surely the stranger would go away and take the wonderful food with him. But the man only smiled sadly. I left home many years ago, he said. My brother was a small boy then. It may be he thought I was dead. Yes, of course, that must be the reason he never spoke of you, the widow exclaimed, busily setting the table with the fine food. The stranger nodded. Now that I have come back, he said, you and Aladdin shall not want for anything. And what he said was true. The new-found uncle bought Aladdin and his mother fine new clothes. Every day he bought them fine food. He treated them both with great love. For Aladdin he had wonderful plans. I shall make you a rich trader just like me, he said. The widow beamed at the uncle and then at her son. I always knew Aladdin would be a great and wealthy man, she said happily. One morning the new-found uncle said, I have important business to take care of. I want Aladdin to come with me. Of course, said his mother, and Aladdin jumped up eagerly. Soon man and boy were on their way, but instead of turning toward the bazaar in the city, the uncle hurried the lad up a nearby mountain. On and on they went, never stopping to rest for a moment. When Aladdin began to think that he could not walk another step, the uncle stopped. "This is the place," he exclaimed. Now I will show you a great wonder. Gather some wood for a fire, quickly, quickly." Aladdin sighed, for he was weary, but he obeyed. Before long he had a pile of dead branches. "Stand aside," the uncle said, and set the wood on fire. Then he took out a pouch and sprinkled some powder on the flames. He muttered strange words as he said this. Suddenly the earth shook, and a loud cloud of black smoke rose from the fire. The ground at Aladdin's feet parted, and he saw a square stone with a brass ring fixed in it. This was magic. His newfound uncle must be a magician, Aladdin thought. "Raise up the stone," the uncle commanded. No longer did he sound like a loving uncle. He stared fiercely at the trembling boy before him. "Hurry!" Aladdin took hold of the ring, and the heavy stone came up as easily as a pebble. Now he saw a narrow opening. Stone steps led down from the opening into the earth. "Just big enough for a lad your size to slip through," the magician said. "Listen carefully. A great treasure is hidden down there. It shall be ours, yours and mine, but only if you do exactly as I tell you." "Yes, uncle," Aladdin whispered fearfully. There, lad, fear nothing." The magician sounded like the newfound uncle again. "I would not send you down there if it were not safe. I would go myself, but the opening is not big enough for a man. That is why I have chosen you for this important task." He patted the boy on the head, but Aladdin still trembled. "Go down those steps like a good lad," the magician said. "Open the great door at the bottom. You will find yourself in the first of 3 caves. In each there will be chests of gold and silver. Do not touch these, or you will die instantly. At the end of the 3rd cave you will find a garden. In that garden you will find an oil lamp. Bring me this lamp." But Aladdin stepped back from the dark opening of the earth. "Here," shouted the magician, "take my ring." He pulled it from his own hand and placed it on Aladdin's finger. "This ring will protect you from all harm. Now go." With a push, he sent Aladdin trembling down the narrow steps. When the lad picked himself up at the bottom, he saw the door his uncle had told him about. Open it, the magician shouted from above. Aladdin pushed at the door, and it swung inward. The cave behind it was filled with treasure, and so was the next cave, and the next. Aladdin remembered what the magician had said. He did not touch the gold or silver, but hurried into the garden beyond. And there was a lamp set on a flat stone. It was a dull old thing. Aladdin could not imagine why his uncle wanted it, but he picked it up and put it inside his shirt. Then he looked about the garden and cried out with delight. On all the trees grew wonderful fruit. His uncle had not said anything against his picking the fruit, and by this time Aladdin was very hungry. However, he soon discovered that he cannot eat the fruit. The apples, pears, cherries, the peaches, and the grapes and berries were jewels shaped like fruit. Being a simple lad, Aladdin thought they were nothing but colored glass. Try and get this on here. An illustration of a Chinese Aladdin trying to pick jewel fruit. I'm getting all tangled here. There we go. "Oh, I'd rather this were real fruit," he said. "But anyway, I can take some home with me. They will make pretty toys." So he stuffed the colored glass inside his shirt. He filled the hidden pockets inside his wide sleeves and the sash around his waist. "Aladdin!" the magician's voice floated down thinly to the boy's ears. "My uncle!" the lad exclaimed and hurried out of the garden and through the caves. The jewel fruits tinkled inside his clothes. "The lamp! Give me the lamp!" his uncle shouted from the narrow opening. "Help me up the stairs first." Aladdin called back. The lamp inside his shirt was under the jewel fruits, and he could not reach it. But the magician above did not know this. "Give me the lamp," he shouted. "You must give it willingly." "I cannot," said Aladdin. "Help me up first." "You little wretch," shouted the man. "You have spoiled everything by not giving me the lamp at once and willingly. Keep the lamp, then." With that, he stopped upon the ground and shrieked an awful magic curse. The earth shook. There was a great roar. The stone Aladdin had lifted rolled back over the opening. At the time, the door swung into the first cave and slammed shut with an awful clang. "Uncle," Aladdin screamed, "let me out." There was nothing but silence above and the black darkness all around and below. Aladdin sat on the steps which now led nowhere and wept. At last he knew the truth. The man who had left him there was a wicked magician who had only pretended to be his uncle. He had made up the whole uncle story in order to get him down into the cave to fetch the old lamp. Even if Aladdin had given him the lamp at once, the wicked man would never have allowed him to leave the cave alive. Now he was as good as dead anyway. There was no way out of this black hole. Hopelessly, Aladdin passed one day and another. He grew hungry and weak. I guess this is the genie. Oh, okay. Oh. There we go. On the third day, in great despair, he sat clasping and unclasping his hands. As he did this, he happened to rub the ring the magician had given him. A flash of light filled the dark hole. Thunder rumbled. A huge genie stood before Aladdin. "What is your wish, master?" roared the genie. "Who are you?" Aladdin asked weakly. I am the slave of the ring," replied the genie. "What is your will? My duty is to obey him who wears the ring." "Get me out of this place," Aladdin cried. Even before he had finished speaking, Aladdin found himself on the mountain, standing in a bright sunshine. There was no sign of his false uncle. The genie was nowhere to be seen. Aladdin sighed in relief. He picked up his heels and fairly flew down the mountain. He did not stop running until he fell breathless into his mother's arms. When he told her all that happened, she was horrified. "How could I have believed that cruel man to be your uncle?" she wailed. Then she wept with joy at Aladdin's safe return. She fed him what little there was in the house and put him to bed for a good rest. The next morning when Aladdin awakened, he was very hungry. "Alas, my dear son," said his mother, "I have been so worried about you these last 3 days I have not been able to spin my flax into thread. Therefore I have nothing to sell. We have no money to buy food. All I had in this house you ate yesterday, but here is an old lamp you brought home. Perhaps if I polish it, I can sell it in the bazaar." No sooner had she begun to rub the lamp than a huge genie appeared in the room. "What is your wish, mistress?" asked the genie in a loud voice. The widow took one look at him and fainted dead away. But Aladdin had already seen a genie, so he stepped forward boldly and picked up the lamp his mother had dropped. "Are you the slave of this lamp?" he asked. "That I am, master," replied the genie. "And the slave of anyone who holds the lamp and knows its secret." There's another illustration. He looks like he's holding a plate of food. "So that's it," Aladdin exclaimed. Now he understood why the magician had wanted the lamp. "Well then, slave of the lamp, bring us something to eat," he commanded. In the wink of an eye, the genie vanished and returned with a large silver tray. On the tray were 12 silver dishes. Each dish had a different food heaped upon it. The delicious smell of the food caused Aladdin's mother to awaken. "Where did all this come from?" she asked in great wonder. "At first, I will not eat first, and I will tell you," Aladdin said. They ate all they could. Then Aladdin told his mother about the magic in the lamp. "Now all is clear," exclaimed the woman. "But while it is very wonderful, I for one do not wish to have anything to do with that frightful genie. And you, my son, must promise to have as little to do with him as possible. He looks dangerous." "I promise," said Aladdin. But he was thinking of another danger. They would have to be very careful with the lamp. If they used it too often, people might learn of their good fortune. Before long, gossip would fly, and then the wicked magician might somehow hear of it and put two and two together. Aladdin never wanted to see his false uncle again. So the widow and her son made the feast the genie brought. Sorry, my viral pain's kicking in here. Okay. So the widow and her son made the feast the genie thought last as long as possible. Then Aladdin took one of the 12 silver dishes to the bazaar and sold it. When that money was used up for food and clothing, he sold another dish and another. One day he took a small jewel fruit along as a plaything to toss in his hand. He still thought the fruit was only colored glass. The merchant who bought the silver dish from Aladdin saw the bright plaything. He became quite excited. "I'll give you this whole bag of gold for that ruby," he exclaimed. Then he remembered to bargain. "Well, perhaps half the bag," he said. In this way, Aladdin learned that he thought to be colored glass was, in truth, a precious stone. The fruit he had dumped into an old basket was untold wealth in rubies and emeralds, diamonds and opals. "I am rich beyond my dreams," Aladdin said to himself. But because he feared the magician, he did not tell his mother. Instead, he gathered the fruit and stored it in soft leather bags. These he carefully hid, and he and his mother continued to live simply in their little house outside the city. And that's for Aladdin and the Magic Lamp. The next one is Aladdin and the Princess. And I'll read that another time. Okay? Thank you very much for listening. Have a good one. You know what to do. Like, subscribe if you enjoyed it. Up to you. Bye.